We're going to go ahead and get started with our challenge course today, and you guys are starting in challenge course 2. I'm going to reiterate to you that when this is done, hopefully I have somebody at the door that's going to escort you out to Lisa. She's out at a building just back behind here, and that'll be challenge course 3. What we're going to do today is we are going to compare and contrast the ISAT and the SBAC in the area of ELA. So we're going to be in our blue Idaho Leads booklet on page 9. Now I wanted to have a wrestling rink in here, and I wanted to throw down in here, but they wouldn't let me, so you get boxing gloves on a piece of paper. I'm sorry. It's just how it is. I know. I was ready to jump off the table with flying elbows, but we'll make do, okay? So what we're going to do, yeah, we've already got a chair up. We've already got a chair up. He's thrown down. You didn't even see it coming, did you? What we're going to do is look at some examples from both assessments, and we're going to truly explore how that's going to affect our practice in order to help all students achieve success on the SBAC, okay? But we got to look behind before we can look ahead. That's why we're going to do this. So on page 9 here, make sure it says ELA, not MATH. That's math. I have to know those things. It's good for me. You're good with that too? Okay, good. What I want to point out though is right there in the middle of the page, right at the bottom, towards the bottom a little bit, it says students will begin taking the SBAC spring 2014. TikTok. Right, here it comes.
A test run or a baseline?
Yeah, okay, so here's where we're going. This is a norming year. Now the unfortunate side to the assessment this year is the fact that you're not going to get any of the data back. None of it. I know, everybody take a deep breath. Ready? Huzzah. They're going to send it to some cargo container out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's going to be black site. You'll never see it again. Sorry. Here's why. It's a norming year. So the scores are going to determine the cut scores. They're going to train the artificial intelligence with that. They're going to check the tech. If there's any questions that are bad, they'll get rid of them, because truly there are thousands of questions in the test bank. So some of them might not be the best. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see any of that data moving forward. I know. I'm sorry. I wish I could change that for you. I can't. I'm not in charge of the world yet. Soon. Okay? All right. What we're going to do is walk through at a rapid pace the documents that are in our challenge here. Then I'm going to give you some time to go back and explore. Then we'll come back together and have a discussion about what the implications for our practice is going to be, what it's going to look like. Fair enough? So I'm going to go fast. There'll be a lot of direct instruct right now, and then you'll get a chance to kick loose. If you don't follow something, you're going to get time, so we'll be good. Okay? Go ahead and turn the page to page 10. This is an ISAT reading question, grade 4. Buddy barks at the sky. At the bottom of that page is a question that corresponds with that passage. On page 11, this is kind of the peek behind the curtain for this question in this reading passage. It's the readability and the text statistics that go along with it. Notice that I have the Flesch-Kincaid grade level circled. I'll come back to that and tell you why in just a minute. Okay? Go ahead and turn the page. This is the SBAC reading questions, grade 3 through 5. Again, at the bottom of the page is a corresponding question I want you to look at that goes along with that. Now, there are 4 big takeaways that go along with this assessment challenge. The first one's coming up right now. If you look on page 13, this is called the placemat. Every single question in the ELA assessment has one of these.
Question on our post test.
It's a question on your post test. Please remind me when we get back in that you get a prize for that. You're right. It is a question on your post test. Every question has a placemat. The placemat consists of the text complexity analysis, the recommended placement, and then the 3-sided triangle is the qualitative measures they looked at, the quantitative measures, and the considerations for that passage selection. Notice again I have the Flesch-Kincaid circled. Here's why. There are very few true apple-to-apple comparisons between ISAT and SBAC. This happens to be one of those apple-to-apples. Not that it's the most important thing, just that it's one you can truly just look at and say, this passage is at this level, this passage is at this level. So I wanted to give you a place to start. Okay? A couple other things that I'll point out on the placemat. On the right-hand side of the triangle there. Now I said that the passage was grade 3 through 5. Right-hand side of the triangle, it says recommended placement grade 4. What that means is this is an adapting test. It's a learning test. That's where the training of the AI comes with this norming test that you're going to have in the spring. You could have a high third grader get this question, you could have a low fifth grader get this question, but ideally the placement is at the fourth grade band, okay? The other thing I'd like to point out on this placemat, bottom right hand, you'll see kind of a rubric. That is not part of the placemat. I photoshopped that in there for you. That is the grading rubric for the writing portion of the question that they're asking. That's what they're going to be looking for. Okay? So first big takeaway, every question has a placemat. Now hold me to the fire. We've got 3 more to get to at the end when we do our discussion, okay? All right. Go ahead and turn the page. We'll pick up a little pace here. ISAT reading question, high school, the swimmer. It continues on to page 15, and there are 2 questions that correspond with the swimmer at the bottom of page 15. Turn the page. Again, there's your little peek behind the curtain, the structure there of those questions and why they chose it, the Flesch Kincaid circled again. Page 17, diamonds in the sky. That is the SBAC reading question for high school. Pay particular attention to the science content in that passage. Go ahead and turn the page again. Diamonds in the Sky continues on to page 18, and at the bottom of page 18 there are 2 questions that correspond with diamonds in the sky. Page 19, what's that called again? Placemat. Spill your gravy and your peas and stuff on it, right? They all have one. There it is for diamonds in the sky. And again, I photoshopped the rubric for the writing piece on the bottom right-hand corner for you to look at. One more time, we're turning the page. We've all seen one of these, given them to our students, and now I'm doing it to you. Venn diagram to compare and contrast. Now, truly, this is a spot for you to take notes. It's for you. It's your benefit, okay? You're going to kind of craft your thinking, and then where I want to live when we come back and have our group discussion is more around question 2 there, which has to do with, after we've looked at these 2 assessments, what are the implications for our practice? What's it going to take? What are we going to have to do? Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'll kick you loose. And with about 5 minutes left, I'll bring you back together. We'll have that discussion and make sure I get to those 3 major points extra, so we have 4 total by the time we're done. You're going to go ahead and you're going to go back through those reading passages, and if you're in elementary, live there for a little bit. You're going to look at those and compare and contrast the ISAT and the SBAC. What do you see that's alike? What's different? And then start thinking about what implications that's going to do for us in the classroom. What are we going to have to do in order to let our students be successful here? So if you're in high school, live in the high school ones. But if you've got some time, it'd be great if you could look back and forth between the 2 so we can have that vertical piece. We can see where we've been and where we're going. Okay, I'll bring you back together in 5 minutes. Go ahead and get started. Okay, let's come back together real quick and talk about what we think. I'm not going to check your understanding on your Venn diagram. I'm pretty sure you can operate one of those proficiently, yeah? So let's talk about the questions then, and then we'll get into the implications for our practice. What do you notice about the SBAC questions versus the ISAT questions? Kevin, what was that first thing you were talking about? You raised your hand and
I
said.
could answer one of the questions on the ISAT without having read the passage, just the sentence, but I also found one of the questions on the new one that I could do that.
Which one?
Uh,
Disgorging?
When the stars exploded, disgorging
Yeah.
the remaining elements. I know that explosions are violent, and that's what would have guided me.
So what's your answer on that one? A, B, C, or D? It is D, if you were wondering. Here's why I put that question in there. Let me first address the first point there. So he stumbled upon your second big takeaway. The first one was the placemat. Here's the second one. By and large, the questions on the SBAC are going to be text dependent and require them to cite specific evidence. Okay, so they're text dependent and cite specific evidence. Now, as far as that question, here's the method to my madness. I built this assessment challenge, so here's the method to my madness a little bit. That question drove me crazy, okay? The reason I put it on there is because there are going to be multiple choice questions on the SBAC that have multiple right answers, okay?
Yeah, that's
Now, in this
I really
case,
had to sift through those.
this one is D. It does have a right answer. Part of that has to do not with the context clues of the assessment or within the passage, but it has to do with the structure of the word itself, which gets to my third big takeaway. They can assess multiple standards in one question. So not only are they checking their understanding for context clues on that question, they're trying to figure out if they know their word structure, their etymology, what are the parts of speech, what are the parts of words. So you can establish multiple standards and claims in one question. right? Here's the little caveat to that. If it's a bad question, they'll throw it out because they have thousands of questions in the testing bank, which is part of the norming year. If this one comes up to 1,000 or 15,000 kids and they all tank it, away it goes. Okay? So just something to think about there. The other thing I'll say, I'll come back to that testing piece a little bit, is Idaho has paid for all students grade 3 through 11 to take this assessment. So they're all going to take it. You'll hear from TJ or ask questions from TJ this afternoon. There obviously are some exceptions to that, who's going to take what for graduation requirements, those types of things. But right now, we're one of the few states in the consortium where we've paid for all kids to take it 3 through 11 so that we can have a tremendous amount of input as far as the norming and the baselining. Okay? All right, so we got to 3 there. Placemat, text dependency, assess multiple standards. Teresa, go ahead.
One other thing that that really struck me when I took a practice ELA for 3rd grade was that I just think is so attainable by our kids, but if we don't know that's what's going to be, if you're not taking these tests and knowing what to teach your kids. So it would ask a question kind of like what you had that was text dependent, or it might ask an inference question that's kind of text dependent, but then the follow-up question, the next question is, which sentences were your evidence of that? And so, like he said, there were 2 that I thought, well, I could infer either one of those. And so then I thought, then the trick is, then the kids have to make sure they match up. I mean, they might pick the right answer here, that's a right answer, but the wrong material that should have gotten them there.
Right. And so this is, remember on these types of things where we're limited in space and paper, this is a snapshot, right? There are more questions that go along with all those passages. So you're exactly right. They need to see the whole picture before they just break down into the individual pieces. Okay, and that's definitely something that we have to do within our practice, and not just you've got 4 choices, eliminate 2 crazies, and you got a 50-50 shot. In the old way of doing it, particularly on the ISAT, it was standard question, standard question, standard question, right? These ones are going to be looking more at a picture of how they think, right? So that's where a shift in our practice needs to take place. Good. Yes?
Okay, where it asks about answer the question and then it has the quote, will it be highlighted or will they have to go back and find it?
Right. So some questions will have the quote for them. Some questions they'll have to go back and find it. Some questions they'll have to highlight it and then drag and drop it into the box. So that begs the question, can your 3rd graders do that? Can they highlight, drag, and drop? Do they know what that means? Do they know what it means for citing evidence? At what time code did the speaker say this? Do they know what it means to scrub to the time code? Or can they use a mouse to drag? Can they use their finger to drag? Can they do that? So that's a tool they need to learn too.
So you've made a choice that you want them to go back, if it's not like highlighted, to go back and find it.
It's not even a choice anymore, in my opinion. They need to. They need to know how to find that evidence within the text. Yep, absolutely. Yes. Somebody who had their hand up. Yes, sir.
One thing I noticed was the difference in content in the 2 writing passages. The ISAT one was just kind of a 3rd-person narrative story, and the SBAC one was, all objective, factual information. And then on the ISAT, they're asking what tone is the author using. On the SBAC, there's not even any tone in that passage.
Sure.
It's just like reading out of the
Informational, right? Informational nonfiction. So be ready for that. I'm going to let you go. The last big takeaway I want you to have, and we were talking about it with scrubbing there a little bit. Yes, they are going to have to interact with multimedia on this test, which means that video is a text. That was a question. And it's kind of a tricky question because it says video is not something that they'll interact with. That's correct. No, it's not. Video is something they will interact with. Yes, sorry. Even that, the wording on that question even gets me at this point, and I've seen it how many times now. They will have to interact with video or other multimedia sources. So thank you for participating in this challenge.